burglaries, and larcenies. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Ms. Regina Saucier and Ms. Deborah Miller a West Hartford Police Department Recognition Award for their assistance to the department in this case. Mr. Alberto Cortez. Before I read what's written here for me, this also happened on September 15, 2016. So it was a pretty busy day here in West Hartford. On September 15, 2016, Mr. Alberto Cortez saw a man looking into vehicles on his street. He watched as a man stuck his head into the open window of a gold-colored sedan, appearing to check out the contents. Mr. Cortez saw that the suspect was starting to leave the area, but being suspicious of the man, decided he would get into his car and follow him. As the suspect took a right onto Park Road, he witnessed the man open a car door, get into the passenger seat, and then exit a short time later. At this point, Mr. Cortez realized that the party was up to no good and called 911. He continued to follow the male in his car, giving directions to the dispatchers until officers arrived and apprehended the burglary suspect and arrested him for the thefts he had just committed. Mr. Cortez was able to positively identify the suspect, who was apprehended as the same individual he observed going into the two vehicles. Without his help, several more vehicles could have been broken into, and a car burglar would have gone undetected. When citizens take an active role in keeping our town safe, it helps us do our job to the best of our abilities. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Mr. Alberto Cortez with the West Hartford Police Department Recognition Award for his assistance to the department. The next presentation will be Joint West Hartford Police Department Recognition Award and Life Saving Awards. Would Ms. Laurel Brooks, Ms. Nikesha Coley, Officer Nicholas Sanford, and Officer Aaron Thomas come up, please? On May 7, 2016 at 8:30 p.m., the West Hartford Police Department received a call from a residential placement facility for teens that have a distraught resident was trying to jump from a second-floor window and attempt to kill herself. The teen had become upset over an argument with another resident. The teen had gone to her room to calm down. A short time later, Ms. Coley went to check on her and saw that she was partially hanging out of the window. Ms. Coley immediately went to the teen and grabbed her so she would not jump. Ms. Laurel Brooks arrived and both women tried to pull her back in. Though unable to get her back inside, both women were able to maintain their grip until Officer Nicholas Sanford and Officer Aaron Thomas arrived. Officer Sanford quickly assisted staff and grabbed hold of the woman, who was resisting his attempts to pull her away from the window. Officer Aaron Thomas, who now was also on the scene, grabbed the woman's arm and leg, which allowed them to pull her away from the window and sit her on the bed. Officer Thomas then closed the window, denying the woman access to it. The victim was then safely transported to the hospital to get treatment. If not for the quick actions of Ms. Coley, Ms. Brooks, Officer Sanford, and Officer Thomas, the victim may very well have been successful at jumping out the window and could have been seriously injured or worse. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Ms. Brooks and Ms. Coley the Recognition Award for their good work. The department is also proud to present Officer Sanford and Officer Thomas with a life-saving award. Would School Security Officer Don Lascari please come forward? On September 28, 2016, School Security Officer Don Lascari notified the department that she was following a suspect who had just stolen a bicycle from Whiting Lane Elementary School. School Security Officer Lascari, a former West Hartford Police Department detective, had been working at Whiting Lane when she saw a suspicious person near the school and then witnessed him take the bicycle. She got into her vehicle and began to follow him, relaying her direction of travel with her radio. She kept in contact with the dispatcher, relaying his location while police units were deployed. Officers arrived shortly, arrested the suspect, and returned the bike to its 9-year-old owner. The suspect was arrested for trespassing on school grounds, possession of burglary tools for having bolt cutters with him, and for larceny. Due to school security officer Don Lascari's quick actions, a suspect was arrested, and a young child was spared the loss of his bicycle. The department is proud to present to School Security Officer Lascari with an Employee Service Award. The next portion of the program are Year of Services Awards. We'd like to recognize those officers and members of the department that have reached a milestone in their years of service to the town. Would the following please come up? Lieutenant Michael Peruccio, who will be receiving his 20 Years of Service Award bar, and Mrs. Patricia Noonan, Records Division Supervisor, who will be receiving her 30 Years of Service Award bar. On behalf of the Public Safety Committee, I commend all those who were honored this morning.
Now we have the officer awards. The mayor will come up and help us present.
Okay. Congratulations to all that received the awards. And this is such an honor for me to recognize officers that have gone above and beyond. We are a community that really appreciates our police officers. We've asked a lot of the chief this year as he was going through and sharing remarks about what's happening in our world, whether it be we watch the Russians, but whatever the TV show is or national events, these are trying times for a lot of people, and a lot of our residents are very concerned about life, and we've had to answer a lot of those concerns. And the chief has been so responsive and caring and compassionate, and understanding how residents are feeling agitated and concerned about various things happening to them in the world. So I really want to thank you for your leadership and responsiveness, and he has gone above and beyond responding to people. Before I came here, I was at the Pedestrian Bicycle Commission has sponsored a Bike to Work Day, and two of our commissioners were there from the state. And there was a memorial ride for a woman who had died in a bicycle accident. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And there were so many comments from the group there that had participated in a ride that had over 60 cyclists on how incredibly compassionate and respectful the officers were allowing them to do this ride. And so again, I appreciate it. And I hear this from all walks of life every day. And I just want to say how much I appreciate all that you do. And now on to the awards. Sergeant Joseph Creco, Officer Christopher Tyler, so come on up, Detective Benjamin Del Monte. They're all working, I guess. I saw 2 accidents on my way here, so. On May 7, 2016, Sergeant Joseph Creco, Officer Christopher Tyler were on routine patrol when they observed a car that they believed matched the description of a vehicle used in recent liquor store burglary. They stopped the car and began speaking with the occupants. Sergeant Creco and Officer Tyler recognized one party on the motor vehicle stop that appeared to be the same person in the surveillance video of the burglary. The officers explained the reason for the stop and gained permission to search the car. A search of the vehicle was conducted, which led to locating some of the same clothing that the suspect was wearing during the burglary, as seen on the surveillance video. Glass shards were located inside of the vehicle, important because the burglary occurred by breaking out the front window of the business. This information was passed along to Detective Benjamin Del Monte, who was investigating the burglary. Detective Del Monte conducted a follow-up interview with one of the suspects and was able to observe stolen property from the burglary in the suspect's apartment. Ultimately, enough evidence was gathered to apply for arrest warrants for both parties identified from the original motor vehicle stop. One party was already remanded into custody from previous arrests, and his warrant was served on him while in jail. Officer Tyler and Sergeant Criecco later observed the second suspect operating his girlfriend's vehicle and took him into custody. Without the coordinated efforts of Sergeant Criecco, Officer Christopher Tyler, and Detective Benjamin Del Monte, it is likely that this burglary would have gone unsolved. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present these officers with a unit citation for their good police work in this case. Lieutenant Samuel Ferrucci, Sergeant Joseph Criecco, Sergeant Christopher Day, Detective Emmanuel Baratieri, I hope I pronounced that right, Detective Matthew Bonzagni, Detective Gary Charleglio, Detective Stephen Charleglio, Detective Brandon Lee, Detective Philip Mugford, and Detective Andrew Wamister. On February 28, 2016, Detective Brandon Lee was called to the scene of an armed robbery. It was soon discovered that the suspect matched the description of a suspect wanted in connection with two armed robberies in Wethersfield, one armed robbery in Manchester, and one previous armed robbery in West Hartford. It was also learned that Manchester police had a potential suspect in custody. Detective Lee and Detective Philip Mugford went to the Manchester Police Department to interview the suspect. Detective Lee and Detective Mugford were able to get a full confession from him where his partner in crime was staying. Detective Lee relayed the information to Sergeant Christopher Day, informing him that the second suspect was staying at a motel in the Hartford area. Sergeant Day, CIT Detective Andrew Warmester, Detective Matthew Bonzagni, and Detective Emmanuel Baratieri were unable to locate the suspect, so it was decided to obtain a search warrant. Detective Bonzagni and Detective Baratieri returned to headquarters to type up a search warrant for the suspect's motel room. Sergeant Day and Detective Warmester continued to surveil the motel in the event when he returned while they were obtaining an arrest warrant. While waiting, Detective Gary Charleglio and Detective Stephen Charleglio were able to get a GPS ping on the suspect's phone. The ping soon began to show that he appeared to be returning to the Hartford area. Sergeant Joseph Criecco and Lieutenant Samuel Ferrucci responded to the area in case the subject returned. A short time later, Detective Wamister and Sergeant Day observed a male get dropped off and walk up the stairs to the second-floor hallway. After a brief struggle, Sergeant Criecco and Lieutenant Ferrucci were able to take the suspect into custody as he approached his room. Located on the suspect was a large amount of cash, a revolver, and similar to the one displayed earlier that morning in the robbery. More evidence of the robberies was located in his room inside the motel. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present the above-named officers a unit citation for their good police work in this case. Good job. Okay, Officer Dalton Gallagher, Officer Jeremy Allen, Officer Dominic Criecco, and Officer Dustin Gansey. On October 28, 2016, Officer Jeremy Allen was dispatched on the report of a theft into a motor vehicle. Upon arrival into the area, Officer Allen began driving around looking for two males who had been observed in the area. He observed a gray Saab parked on the side of the road with its headlights on. As he got closer to the vehicle, he was able to obtain the plate number and found that the car was stolen. At this time, Officer Allen made a U-turn and followed the vehicle. While following the vehicle down various side streets and main roads, Officer Dominic Grieco was calling in the location over the radio. The vehicle came to a red light and stopped. At this time, Officer Dalton Gallagher, who was stopped just out of sight, was able to approach the vehicle and deploy the stop sticks under the front tires. Officer Dustin Gansey arrived to also assist in the call. It was at this time that a felony stop was initiated, and Officers Griego, Gansey, Gallagher, and Allen approached the vehicle with their duty weapons pointed at the two occupants. Officer Gallagher was able to handcuff the passenger without incident. At the same time, Officer Griego was able to handcuff the driver also without incident. As this was taking place, the department received several calls from the residents in the area who reported that their vehicles had been burglarized. Upon looking inside the stolen vehicle, Officer Allen saw several items that were commonly stolen in motor vehicle thefts. After an investigation and interviews with the victims, the items were returned to their respective owners. The owner of the stolen car was contacted and responded to take custody of his vehicle. Due to their quick thinking and quick action, they were able to arrest two suspects as well as return a stolen car and several articles of stolen property. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present these officers with a unit citation for their good police work in this case. Okay, we have a long list here. So Lieutenant Samuel Ferrucci, Lieutenant Eric Rushello, Sergeant Joseph Crieco, Sergeant Aaron Vafiadis, Scott Seeger, Brian Hill, Detective Stephen Charleglio, Detective Todd Myers, Detective Philip Mugford, Detective Jeremy Tangarone, Detective Andrew Wummister, Detective Rosario Savastra, Detective Matthew Bagzagni, Detective Gary Charleglio, Detective Daniel Raywood, Detective Benjamin Del Monte, Detective Brandon Lee, Detective Kevin Harrison, Officer Sean Walmsley, Officer Kyle Davis, Officer Robert Haas, Officer Andrew Teeter, and Officer Jeffrey Hopkins. On March 31st, 2016, the West Hartford Police Department received a report of a burglary during which the victim interrupted and was violently assaulted by the offender. Officers Hopkins and Haas arrived on scene and quickly recognized the homeowner and had serious facial injuries and began care. Officer Haas stayed with the victim while he was transported to an area hospital. Later, Detective Mugford met the victim at the hospital to obtain the details surrounding the event. Back at the crime scene, Sergeant Vafadias quickly took charge and instructed officers what needed to be done. Officer Hopkins and Officer Davis secured the scene for the arrival of Detective Seeger and Detective Stephen Charleglio. Officer Davis then conducted a neighborhood canvass with little success. Due to the fact that the homeowner's injuries caused him to have limited memory of the incident, the investigation went through the night and into the next morning, while Detectives Del Monte and Stephen Charleglio located the victim's jewelry at a pawn store in Hartford. Lieutenant Rushello and Task Force Officer Walmsley coordinated with Capital City Crime Center, where they developed a video of the suspect and vehicle at the pawn store. This investigation quickly progressed, while Detectives Hill and Tangarone were able to identify the suspect after speaking with witnesses who were present at the time the stolen jewelry was pawned. Armed with this information, more witnesses were developed, which led to the identification of the suspect. However, the whereabouts of the suspect and his vehicle were unknown at that time. Within less than 5 days, Detective Seeger obtained an arrest warrant while Sergeant Krieko and Officer Teeter followed up leads and located the suspect vehicle. A multi-jurisdictional plan was coordinated and activated to locate and arrest the suspect. The arrest teams consisted of, but were not limited to, Lieutenant Ferrucci, Detective Raywood, Detective Harrison, Detective Myers, Detective Warmester, Detective Lee, Detective Savastra, and Detective Bonzagni. The arrest teams departed to their specific locations in Waterbury, Hartford, and East Hartford, and within hours, the suspect was located while using heroin at his girlfriend's home. The above-named officers conducted a thorough and speedy investigation that led to the capture and arrest of a violent home invader. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present them with a unit citation for their actions in this case. Okay, don't go far, some of you. Lieutenant Samuel Ferrucci, Lieutenant Eric Richelieu, Sergeant Brian Cantelli, Sergeant Christopher Day, Sergeant Aaron, I'm going to say it right this time, Vafiatis, Detective Todd Myers, Detective Kevin Harrison, Officer Dalton Gallagher, Officer Michael Boughton, Officer Jeremy Gagnon, Officer Brandon Dudzinski, Officer Nicholas Sanford, Officer Dustin Gansey, Officer John Cardone, Officer Peter Callis, Officer Christopher Tyler, Officer Andrew Teeter, Officer Timothy Cameral, Officer Brian Gallagher, Officer Christopher Leonard. Do you need to come back here? Officer Christopher Leonard, Officer Dakota Fliss, Officer Brian Del Grande, Officer Robert Haas. On February 25th, 2016, at around 9:30 p.m., the West Hartford Police Department received a report that a man with a handgun had just robbed a person of their phone in a parking lot on New Britain Avenue. Several police units were dispatched into the area, and the victim was able to provide a partial license plate of the car and the suspect left in. As officers on the scene were investigating, the Farmington Police Department reported that another robbery involved the same car had occurred just over the line in their town, and they were actively pursuing the vehicle. The chase was coming down Farmington Avenue into West Hartford Center. Upon hearing this, multiple West Hartford units responded into the area to block intersections so that pedestrians and innocent drivers would be safe and to get into position to deploy stop sticks. West Hartford units also became involved in the pursuit. As the chase went through town, officers were able to box the car in at South Main Street and Park Road. The 5 occupants of the car were all taken into custody. 2 handguns, gloves, marijuana, the stolen cell phones, and cash were recovered from the car, which officers also learned was stolen. All of the occupants were arrested for a variety of weapons, robbery, drug, and motor vehicle charges. The above-named officers handled the call professionally and were able to apprehend 5 dangerous suspects while keeping the public safe and quickly ended a robbery spree. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to commend the above-named officers that participated in this incident and award them a unit citation in recognition of their good work. Emphasis. job. Okay, Sergeant Joseph Cariaco, Sergeant Brad Beliciano, Officer Brandon Dudzinski, Officer Dustin Gansey, Officer Jeremiah Gagnon, and Officer Christopher Tyler. On September 2nd, 2016, Officer Brandon Dudzinski and Officer Jeremiah Gagnon observed a stolen motor vehicle on New Park Avenue occupied by 5 people. The officers followed the vehicle as it pulled into the movie theater parking lot, and as the officers approached, the occupants of the vehicle fled on foot. Officer Dudzinski pursued the driver and took him into custody. Officer Gagnon pursued and captured another occupant. Officer Dustin Gansey and Sergeant Brett Beliciano responded to the area to assist and located 2 parties near the movie theater that matched the description of the suspects. They were also taken into custody. Officer Dudzinski found a purse in the car that contained the ID of a 5th occupant. Sergeant Cariaco looked the name up on Facebook and obtained a photograph of the suspect, who was then observed standing in the lobby of the movie theater holding a bag. Upon taking her into custody, a scale, 110 bags of heroin, and an ID belonging to one of the other suspects were found inside the bag. In total, 5 arrests for a stolen motor vehicle and 2 arrests for narcotics were made. Additionally, a stolen motor vehicle was recovered, 110 bags of heroin, and $811 seized. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present the above-named officer with a unit citation in recognition of their good police work. Nope. Okay. Sergeant Joseph Cariaco, Detective Brandon Lee, Detective Andrew Wemister, Officer Jeremy Allen, and Officer Christopher Tyler. On December 29, 2016, the West Hartford Police Department received a report of an attempted carjacking with a gun. Officers arrived and were told by the victim that he had placed an ad on Craigslist to sell his car. When the would-be buyer took a test drive with him, the man pulled out a gun on him and told him to get out of the car. The victim refused, wrestled the gun away from the suspect, and was able to kick him out of the car. Officer Jeremy Allen, the first officer on the scene, provided an initial description and located the gun, which turned out to be a pellet gun used in the incident in the vehicle. Officer Allen later went on on the K-9 track after a perimeter had been established. After the initial dispatch, Officer Andrew Teeter and Officer Christopher Tyler recognized both how the robbery was committed and the basic description as belonging to a known suspect involved in the Craigslist vehicle robberies, and provided responding units with this information. Sergeant Joseph Cariaco ultimately located the suspect as he was attempting to flee the neighborhood and quickly took him into custody. Detective Andrew Wemister and Detective Brandon Lee processed the car and then interviewed the suspect. They were able to get a full confession and link him to other similar robberies. Due to the above-named officer's quick response and attention to detail, they were able to take into custody a dangerous felon that had committed several street robberies and put an end to his crime spree. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present these officers with a unit citation for their good police work in this case. Some of you are going to run out of wall space. Okay. Officer Brandon Dudzinski, Officer Andrew Teeter, Officer Ryan Riley, Officer Peter Callis, and Officer Michael Boughton. On November 22, 2016, around 9:57 p.m., the Newington Police Department sent out a broadcast over the hotline that a car had just been stolen from their town. Officer Brandon Dudzinski and Officer Andrew Teeter were in the Elmwood area and began to move toward the Newington town line. As they were traveling down Newington Road, the officers observed the stolen car. They began to follow the car, and when it was stopped at a red light, the officers jumped out of the cruiser and threw a pair of stop sticks under the tire. They drew their weapons and ordered the occupants out of the car. The driver of the car ignored that order, put the car in gear, and drove off. Unfortunately for the driver, the car drove over the well-placed stop sticks, deflating a rear tire. The car traveled a short distance down New Britain Avenue and then spun out with the vehicle occupants fleeing from the car. Officer Peter Callis, who was responding to the call, was also able to capture one of the suspects immediately as he was fleeing. Officer Ryan Riley and Michael Boughton were able to capture the other two. All three were arrested on felony charges and turned over to the Newington Police Department. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present the above-named officers with a unit citation for their good police work in this case. The next is a Police Merit Award. So the next award that we're presenting is the West Hartford Police Merit Award. This award is presented to the members of the department upon commission of intelligent and valuable police service, which demonstrates a special faithfulness or devotion to duty. Sergeant Aaron Vafiates, is that right? Okay. On November 25th, 2016, Sergeant Aaron Vafiates responded to the scene of a car accident on Albany Avenue. Sergeant Vafiates was the first officer on the scene and well ahead of all other responding officers. Upon arrival, he was met with a chaotic scene. The accident involved a single car that had crashed into a tree. The car was on fire and the driver was trapped. There were also several panicked bystanders who tried unsuccessfully to pull the driver from the car. Remaining calm, Sergeant Vafiates provided a bystander with a fire extinguisher to try and quell the fire. With no regard for his own safety, Sergeant Vafiates approached the burning car and tried to open the driver's side door, but was unable to. In order to extricate the driver, he needed to awkwardly enter the burning car from the rear passenger side door. The heat from the fire was extreme, and at this point, the flames were reaching high into the tree. Even though the driver's legs were trapped in the crushed floorboard, he was able to disentangle the driver's legs and, with the help of bystanders, bring the driver to a safe area and begin CPR. Despite all that was done, sadly, the driver succumbed to her injuries. While the outcome was not what one would have hoped for, Sergeant Vafiates, at great risk to his own personal safety, did everything in his power to attempt to save this woman's life. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Sergeant Aaron Vafiates with a merit award for his actions in this incident, and he is not here for him. Officer Dalton Gallagher. On October 9th, 2016, Officer Dalton Gallagher was on patrol when he observed a gold Infiniti G20 turning eastbound on Albany Avenue from North Main Street. A check of the license plate showed the register owner was a wanted person out of East Hartford. Officer Gallagher stopped the car and the driver stated that his father was the owner of the vehicle. A computer check of the driver's license showed that his license was suspended. The suspended license made it impossible for the driver to transport the vehicle home, so he said he would call his father to come and retrieve the vehicle. The owner of the vehicle arrived on scene to transport the vehicle home. The owner of the vehicle was the wanted person identified on the initial inquiry of the registration. His identity was confirmed by his Connecticut driver's license, and he was placed under arrest for the outstanding warrant on serious sexual assault charges involving a minor. Due to Officer Gallagher's good investigative work, he was able to apprehend a dangerous felon. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Dalton Gallagher with a merit award for his good work in this case. Detective Philip Mugford. On August 18, 2015, Detective Philip Mugford was assigned a bad check case, which involved a local business that had their checkbook compromised. During the course of his investigation, Detective Mugford discovered that 31 checks were forged and cashed for a loss totaling almost $25,000. This case took Detective Mugford across Connecticut with several trips to the New Haven area where he investigated suspects who were involved in cashing the checks. His investigation lasted over a year and resulted in 16 arrest warrants being written and approved. Detective Mugford was also able to get full confessions from family members involved as well as suspects. His ability to keep pushing enabled him to get the mastermind who constructed the felonious scheme. This person was a violent career criminal who, because of Detective Mugford, has been arrested for his participation in this case and remanded back to jail for violating his parole. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Detective Philip Mugford with a merit award for his good police work in this case. Officer Andrew Teeter, Officer Christopher Tyler. On January 24, 2017, the New Britain Police Department notified surrounding departments that a car had been stolen and later used in a robbery in Hartford. A short time later, another robbery occurred in Hartford using the same stolen vehicle. Based on this, Officer Christopher Tyler and Officer Andrew Teeter moved into the area of Prospect Avenue and began to monitor traffic. Shortly after arriving, the stolen car used in the robbery with 3 occupants drove past their location. Officer Tyler and Officer Teeter began to follow the car in their unmarked CIT Cruiser. Other officers were able to move into the area, and both New Britain and Newington police departments were sent into the area to assist. Officers deployed stop sticks as the car exited the highway from Route 9. The stolen car attempted to elude officers, eventually crashed into a telephone pole. Officer Tyler and Officer Teeter assisted in the search for the suspects. Officers were quickly able to take one of the juvenile suspects into custody and later were able to identify the juvenile driver of the stolen car. Both juveniles were referred to juvenile court. Due to the actions of Officer Tyler and Officer Teeter, a stolen car was recovered and suspects in 2 robberies were apprehended. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Christopher Tyler and Officer Andrew Teeter a merit award for their good police work in this case. The next award that we would like to present today is the West Hartford Police Department Life Saving Award. This award is presented to any sworn member of a civilian member for a successful effort in saving a human life. Officer Nicholas Sanford and Officer Jeremy Allen. On February 22, 2017, Officer Nicholas Sanford and Officer Jeremy Allen were dispatched to the West Hartford Health and Rehab on a medical call concerning an 85-year-old resident whose heart had stopped. Upon arrival, Officer Nicholas Sanford assessed the victim and immediately provided 2 cycles of CPR to the person who had collapsed. Officer Jeremy Allen and the West Hartford Fire Department arrived soon after and assisted with treating the patient. Officer Sanford, Officer Allen, and the West Hartford firefighters all cycled through providing CPR to the individual until AMR arrived. After approximately 25 minutes, medical control authorized CPR to be ceased. Upon stopping CPR, Officer Allen looked at the EKG monitor and observed that the patient now had a pulse. The patient was subsequently transported to the hospital for further evaluation, where he has since recovered. The quick actions of all, as well as their ability to work as a team, resulted in the recovery of a victim whose heart had completely stopped. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Nicholas Sanford and Officer Jeremy Allen with a life-saving award. That wasn't a good pictures. The next set of awards we would like to present are the West Hartford Police Department Citations. These are presented to members of the department who, through their own initiative and diligence, apprehends or through their actions causes to be apprehended a felon who might otherwise go undetected. All right. Officer Timothy Cameral. Cameral or Cameral? You have to put the... Cameral. You have to put the, like, syllable, you know, the accent. Okay, Officer Cameral, now I'll remember. On January 13, 2017, Officer Timothy Cameral was parked in the Shell gas station and observing the patrons exiting Los Imperios Lounge when he heard a loud noise, which he recognized to be the sound of a single gunshot. The shot sounded like it came from about a block east of his location. He immediately began to move in the direction of the fired shot. As he was arriving, he saw patrons trying to flee the area and taking cover behind the vehicles and buildings. As he was pulling up, he saw a black sedan speeding off eastbound on Farmington Avenue at a high rate of speed. He was able to eventually catch up to the car and initiate a motor vehicle stop. All three occupants of the car were removed safely. All three denied being involved in the shooting. However, a search of the car revealed 2 bags of heroin and a handgun. 2 of the occupants of the car were arrested on a variety of charges. One of the passengers was also wanted on several warrants from surrounding towns. Forensic testing would later link that firearm to the shot that was fired. Additional investigation has linked this handgun to 2 other shootings that had previously occurred in Hartford. Due to Officer Timothy Cameral's quick and decisive action, a firearm and 2 dangerous suspects were removed from the community. The department is proud to present Officer Timothy Cameral with a West Hartford Police Departmental citation. Officer Jeremiah Gagnon and Officer Brandon Dudzinski. On November 1st, 2016, Officer Brandon Dudzinski and Officer Jeremiah Gagnon conducted a motor vehicle stop on a heavily tinted vehicle. Upon speaking with the 3 occupants, the officers could smell the odor of burnt marijuana. When the driver was asked about the smell, he admitted to having a blunt in the car. That's in quotes. Based on this, I wouldn't know that, right? Based on this, the officers decided to search the car. When the rear passenger was removed from the vehicle, Officer Dudzinski observed the grip of a handgun sticking from the passenger's waistband. The suspect was taken to the ground and handcuffed. All occupants of the vehicle were detained, and a search of the vehicle revealed a total of $2,936 in cash, 39 bags of crack cocaine, and 4.8 grams of marijuana. The occupants were arrested on a variety of drug and weapon charges. The officers' actions in this case led to the arrest of 2 suspects, as well as taking an unregistered and loaded pistol off the streets, along with a large amount of crack cocaine and marijuana. All of this was done swiftly and safely. The West Hartford Police are proud to present Officer Brandon Dudzinski and Officer Jeremiah Gagnon a departmental citation for their good work in this case. Officer Timothy Cameral. I got it. Takes me a few times. On April 25th, 2016, at around 11 p.m., Officer Timothy Cameral was on patrol in the area of the Boulevard and Prospect Avenue when he noticed 2 men standing next to a car near the closed urgent care building. The men were passing something back and forth and smoking it. Officer Cameral parked his car a short distance away and began to observe the men. One of the men began to use his cell phone, and a short time later, a small gray sedan pulled into the parking lot. He watched as one of them approached the car and appeared to hand something to the driver and take something away. Officer Cameral called for backup and approached the group. When Officer Cameral got closer, he immediately recognized the odor of marijuana coming from the gray car. The driver claimed to have just stopped to say hi to the 2 males in the parking lot, but a search of the car located 20 bags of marijuana packaged for sale, $229 in cash, and a loaded Kel-Tec semi-automatic handgun inside a lunchbox. The driver of the car was arrested on several weapon and drug charges. Because of Officer Cameral's self-initiated activity, he was able to arrest a drug dealer and take another weapon off the street. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Timothy Cameral with a departmental citation for his good work in this case. Officer Brandon Dudzinski on October... Yeah. On October 10, 2016, while on routine patrol, Officer Brandon Dudzinski observed a heavily tinted blue Honda Accord bearing a Vermont registration parked on the east side of Dunkin' Donuts on New Britain Avenue. Due to a tinted cover, the plate was difficult to see. A check of the license plate showed that the registration was a lost or stolen plate from West Hartford and belonged on a black Acura sedan. After approaching the vehicle and finding that it was unoccupied, an inquiry of the VIN number showed that the vehicle was stolen at gunpoint out of East Hartford. Officer Dudzinski went inside Dunkin' Donuts to find out if anyone knew who had driven the vehicle. There was one worker who looked extremely uncomfortable and agitated. After speaking with the workers in the Dunkin' Donuts as well as the manager, it was determined that the worker who had appeared so suspicious was the owner of the vehicle in question. During a pat-down of the suspect, a Honda key was located in one of his pockets. Officer Dudzinski tried the key on the stolen vehicle, and it was a match. The suspect was arrested and charged with larceny in the third degree, as well as interfering with an officer. Due to Officer Dudzinski's observations and tenacity, a stolen car was recovered without a dangerous pursuit or the suspect fleeing and endangering lives. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Brandon Dudzinski with a departmental citation for his good police work in this case. Sergeant Joseph Krieko and Officer Andrew Teeter. On November 8, 2016, around 10 a.m. in the morning, Sergeant Joseph Krieko and Officer Andrew Teeter were parked in the area of New Park Avenue and Prospect Avenue monitoring traffic when they observed a car pull into the gas station. A computer check showed that the car was stolen out of New Britain. The stolen car pulled up to an air pump to inflate a tire that was going flat. The officers pulled up behind the car, deployed stop sticks so that it could not flee, and detained the driver. The officer also noticed a strong odor of marijuana coming from the car. A search of the car revealed a small amount of marijuana, 3 uncut Toyota transponder keys commonly used to steal cars, a small pry tool used to take security tags off clothing, and over $1,500 in stolen merchandise from area stores. It was later learned that the suspect was part of an organized shoplifting ring that was renting cars, failing to return them, and using them to travel from one shopping center to another. He was also wanted for failing to appear in court on previous cases. It was through Sergeant Krieko and Officer Teeter's actions that a major shoplifting ring operating in the area was significantly disrupted and exposed. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Sergeant Krieko and Officer Andrew Teeter with a departmental citation for their good police work in this case. Don't go too far. Sergeant Joseph Krieko and Officer Jeremy Gagnon. This is the last one. So, on December 23, 2016, at around 4:23 p.m., Sergeant Joseph Krieko and Officer Jeremy Gagnon were on South Quaker Lane when they observed a car making a left turn without using the signal and then drive over the double yellow line as it negotiated a slight curve in the road. The officers stopped the car, and as they were speaking with the driver, they could detect a strong odor of marijuana coming from the vehicle. The officers also observed a digital scale in the car that the passenger was partially sitting on a wrinkled plastic sandwich bag. Based on their observations, the officers decided to search the vehicle and located about $600 in cash, 4 different cell phones, and a loaded .357 Magnum revolver under the driver's seat. Upon further inspection of the revolver, they saw that it was loaded with 4 live rounds and 1 spent shell. Also found in the car were 5 bags of marijuana. The occupants of the car were arrested on a variety of felony and weapons charges. Later, one of the occupants confessed to being a drug dealer and purchasing the handgun a week earlier for protection after being shot at. Due to the diligence of Sergeant Krieko and Officer Jeremy Gagnon, another handgun was removed from the street, and 3 individuals involved in drug sales in the Hartford area were taken into custody. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Sergeant Joseph Krieko and Officer Jeremy Gagnon a departmental citation for their good work of police work in this case. is a remarkable bit of work that was recognized here, but it happens every day. Thank you so much for all you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor, thank you all for being here today. We're going to close, but before we close, as I said at the beginning, Ron Van Winkle is, yes, I know, I'm sorry. We're going to do it. Just we'll make it painless. Is retiring. We wanted to just give him a token of our appreciation. This was, he didn't know it was unplanned for him, but I didn't warn him because at our monthly management meeting, he likes to do a poem to start off the meeting. I didn't want a poem today. I figured it would just be low-key. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, we'll make it quick. Just giving a word, no speech, nothing like that. All right, so it's a plaque presented to Town Manager Ronald F. Van Winkle in appreciation of your dedicated and devoted service, 2008 to 2017. Did I get those right? I got those right. Thank you from the officers and staff of the West Hartford Police Department, presented by me. All right, that is going to conclude our ceremony today, but before we go, as I do every year, and I sound like a broken record maybe, but I think this is important, there's a lot of good deeds out there that go unrecognized, that go unnoticed. We can't catch them all. We know our civilian staff, we know our officers, we know our citizens do a great job every day, and there's probably some stuff there that we missed. So thank you all for doing that. But they say doing good when nobody's watching is actually the most praiseworthy act of all, so thank you all for that. We're going to conclude. We're going to have refreshments upstairs, room 400, which is across the hall. One flight up. If you'd like to join me in congratulating those we have honored here today, that's going to conclude the ceremony. Have a great day and a great weekend. Alberto, want to do a picture? Yes. Okay, hold on a second.
With a world far away and your lips close to mine,